Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Backlog Banter movie review. My name is Tucker Hazel, and this is my off-the-walls co-host, Tanner Dykstra, and today we're here to talk about the biggest and hottest movie out of India, RRR. We saw it in person on the return to theaters that they had, and it was an experience, to say the very least. But if you want to talk to us about this movie, please come talk to us about this movie. And of course, leave a comment in the description. Or you can join our Discord server. That link is at the top of the description. You can like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, all those really fun things which you're going to want to, because we're never going to stop to talking about RRR.
No.
Tanner, give me your off the bottom thoughts of RRR.
So RRR is an interesting film, to say the least. It sort of gained steam on Twitter for a while. You know, these clips were circulating. People were like, "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's 3 hours long. It is balls to the walls, insane." And it is that. Every bit of praise you've heard about RRR is true. It is not an exaggeration. It is patently incredible. But
yeah, it absolutely is one of the best theater experiences, movie experiences I've ever had in my life. I was not really feeling it too much going in. I think that the opening scene, which features a little girl being kidnapped, I thought it was, I'm like, okay, this is a setting of the ground, but it wasn't until we get the first two action sequences and start getting to the development of the friendship between our two main characters, Raham and Beam, where I really fell in love with this movie. And this is not an exaggeration. I was sweating in the theater watching this movie because I was so excited by what I was seeing on screen. I was stomping my feet and bouncing up and down like, I can't believe what I am seeing. And coming out the other end, I'm like, man, I've never felt this way watching a movie before. And having my friends beside me and watching this loud-ass music and crazy things happen on screen, it really is the 3-hour epic that everyone was praising it to be. You're absolutely right.
The theater experience too is great, because you have some people who I think were there was a guy wearing an RRR shirt, so I presume he was a fan of the film and had seen it before. But there's other people around us who were also experiencing this for the first time, because we have all these conceptions around like Indian films. This is of course not a Bollywood film. I made that mistake myself. I wasn't aware of like the intricacies of the Indian film market. But it's really interesting that, you know, I could absolutely see this being like a doorway to more films like this having cross-market appeal, international appeal. Especially when you have the country's biggest director and its two biggest stars. It feels big enough and grand enough to fit all these things in it.
Yeah, I think what is most impressive about RRR is over the course of its 3 hours, you see multiple action sequences that could stand on their own as the culminating action sequence of another movie. And that ratcheting up of the action really feels unique, because you're hit off the bat with an insane action sequence in which one of our characters, Ram, goes into a crowd of thousands of people and just pushes through. And you get this sense of how skilled and powerful this guy is. Both the main characters are off the charts in terms of
they're superhuman, essentially.
They just do superhuman antics the entire time, but it still ends up feeling pretty human, because you're talking about these two characters that form a friendship, and it's about betrayal and these background themes of colonialism and all these things that do feel very personal. And I was also just as invested. We were learning about the characters' backstories and their emotional journeys, and the small section of the movie that is very heavily focused on just almost an anime romance. And I think that its balancing of all these tones is what made me enjoy it so much all the way through for 3 straight hours.
Yeah, it is heartfelt, it is genuine, and it is electric, and for over the course of its 3-hour runtime. I mean, there's so much stuff packed into this, and it's all given, you know, the equal amounts of revelry, even though the time-wise they are not really comparable, but the amount of care that went into each of these sequences is definitely there. There's the rom-com element. There is the bromance, the friendship that runs throughout this entire film. There is, as we've talked about, the superhuman action sequences. There is, you know, the drama underlying these two guys not knowing that they're enemies and becoming best friends is really super interesting. There is dance sequences and musical numbers, and
all of which work very well.
and it feels cohesive, and it's nuts
Yes.
that is the case, and that is probably a thread through a lot of Indian films of of Indian blockbusters that as American audiences we just aren't privy to, and it's
Yeah.
really interesting that maybe the grandest example of all those things is the one that broke through and has that
Yeah.
crossover appeal.
Mm-hmm. I think the best way to describe the tone of this film is self-serious, but
Hmm.
self-serious through its ridiculousness. I mean, this movie is crazy, and the things that happen in it are ridiculous, and the characters are getting up to hijinks and antics that you just have never witnessed before, and performing stunts, which are some of the most impressive I've ever seen in my life. But it still manages to strike a very self-serious tone. Like the characters, this is the world to them. This is the most important thing that's ever happened,
Hmm.
and there's not really many opportunities for them to step outside of that and like make a quick joke or something like that, which we're used to in American action comedy, because action and comedy are so intertwined here in
Yeah,
America.
the sarcasm that it
Yeah.
underlines in a lot of modern American films, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not present here. And I think that certainly makes it stand out from what we've experienced.
It's a 10 out of 10 movie. This is a 10 out of 10 movie. If you can see it in a theater, I beg of you, please go see it. It's on Netflix, so if there's no theater available around you showing it, watch it on
Very
Netflix.
accessible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very accessible. Watch it on Netflix. But if you can see this on the big screen, please do it.
Somehow, some way. I don't
Yeah,
know if
somehow.
it's still showing somewhere. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a 10 out of 10 for me too. The reason I immediately give it a 10 out of 10 when I'm walking out of the theater is because as I mentioned earlier, I think to myself, I've never felt this way walking out of a movie. So invigorated and excited about what I just watched and bantering about it with my friends and thinking back through all these crazy things that just happened and happened and happened. It really like emotionally impacted me, not from like I was super sad, but super excited in a way that not many movies have.
There's our endorsement of RRR in case you needed another one. I really just wanted to talk about the Naatu Naatu sequence, which is, I love that sequence so much. It is this electric dance sequence that comes, sort of in the middle of these two guys, their friendship building and the anime romance, as you were talking about.
Yeah.
And it is, it is just like a fist pumping, yeah, stick it to the bad white colonial people. It is great. And it goes, it's like a 4.5 minute scene, and it maintains this, like, this energy throughout the entire thing. It is filled with wide shots of just the actors and the dancers in the background, everybody just dancing. And
Yeah.
that is something that maybe not a lot of modern American musicals have figured out how to do.
Yeah, those musical numbers definitely stuck out to me as very fun, but I think it is the action sequences where this movie's identity shines the brightest, in that the CGI is not great in certain aspects, but your believability is thrown out the window when you're watching this movie.
There's a suspension of disbelief, of course.
Absolutely,
Naturally,
absolutely.
yes,
But I
naturally.
think that allows for action sequences that are more dynamic and creative than most action sequences I've seen. And I've seen a lot of action movies and a lot of ones that do ridiculous things. But when you're talking about these guys that are slinging through a crowd of 1,000 people, that are doing a piggyback prison break, which is just incredible, shooting grenade-tipped arrows, swinging off an exploding bridge and grabbing each other's hands. Like, there's so many moments in this movie that I think and I hope will become iconic in action cinema of these transitions and shots and stunts that are so interwoven and have such a strong identity that they absolutely stick in your mind.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I did want to, just shout out our two main actors in this film. N.T. Ramarao Jr. and Ram Charan, both fantastic. I mean, they are muscly. They are laughing and clasping hands like American action heroes of years old, and they portray these two titans in this fantastic world so well.
Yeah, and I think the best part about them is their dynamic and is the friendship and betrayal and all that, because they are very different. Even though they are both muscly action hero guys doing some of the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life, Mahim is a lot more like lovable and understanding, at least for the first half, and seeing Ram go from the obvious villain for the first half to a much more sympathetic character in the second half, and watching the two of them sort of intersect, diverge, and then come together again makes their dynamic so compelling. I love the score. I think the score is one of the iconic and important things about this movie in terms of giving it its identity. I think that the way that it's used, especially character themes, Ram has a really great character theme that is like brooding and evil and has this drum beat to it. But then I also came around to the end when he is obviously he's a protagonist, but when he's a real hero at the end, they're playing elements of it. And I'm like, man, actually this can be used to sound heroic as well. And I think it's really unique and very, very impactful.
Oh, Tucker, I did have one last question for you. I've seen some conversation. Do we think this gets nominated for Best International Feature at the Oscars this year?
I'd say it's not impossible.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the earliest times in the year I've seen an international film break into the popular sphere like this, and I do think because of its insane popularity and Indian films not being nominated that often, I think that easily, I think it should be absolutely, but because it's action, I don't know if that holds it back. I mean, we don't really see much outside of just dramas.
True.
being nominated for Best International Feature.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Academy, the ball is in your court. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. All right, which one do you want to talk about first? Oh, shoot, I left this video filter on. There we go. Let's switch that baby off a second. Okay.